Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there? This is Weedman420 with the Weedman420 podcast. How you all doing out there, all my burners, stoners, and potheads? We're looking forward to this episode. We're fired up. We have a special guest on this show today. But before we get started, how you doing, Mrs. Weedman?
I'm doing well.
Tell our listeners how much snow we got, the whiteness that is going on outside.
Well, it was up to almost my knee. That probably doesn't say a lot because I'm pretty short. But I would say it was well over a foot, right? I think so. Yeah, pretty close.
Oh yeah, we got T in the house today. Our tech. How you doing, T?
Pretty good.
That sounds.
From shoveling, that's about it.
All right. It's perfect snowball snow. I will say that. Like, I do want to go out and play.
We've been getting wiped out here in Illinois, and I know across 80 million people are getting wiped out right now. But we're going to get started here. We got a special guest, an award-winning documentary film and writer and director, Sara Barger, to the show. How you doing, Sara?
Hello, Sara.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to get you on this show. Mrs. Weedman and I loved the film. We loved the documentary. It brought a tear to my eye. I know that for sure. And it was great timing for us to watch. And Mrs. Weedman had mentioned it on a prior show that we did and how we were trying to promote it to get people to watch it because it's very moving on what this little girl and what you're going to talk about went through in her life and the family went through. But I don't want to steal any of your thunder. But before we talk about this, let me ask you the question I ask all guests on the show. You smoke weed because?
So for the same reason a lot of you guys smoke weed, I actually have 3 slip discs. And I'm not a functional stoner, as they say. All my friends have always smoked pot. I grew up with weed. My brothers are stoners, but I was never a big smoker until, so no chiropractor works in this city on the weekends. So when my back goes out on like a Friday, the only thing that gets me through the weekend really is some good bud.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
How is, and you're Washington, D.C., right?
That's correct, yeah.
And now I know a little bit of the laws, and I've talked about on prior episode a little bit about the Washington, D.C. laws. Is it still the same where you can't directly sell it? You can grow it and you can give it away. I know there was a time where people were selling T-shirts for $50 and there was a 50 bag in the T-shirt to give and stuff like that. Is that still the same way they're doing it now?
Yeah, so it's decriminalized. So if you can get, there's delivery services, you can buy like 5 chocolate chip cookies for $50 and get your free gift. But there are dispensaries. So I used to have my med card, and there's I think 5 or 6 dispensaries around the city. So you can go in, and that's like more like you see in Vegas or California, where it's a store where you can go in and choose what you want.
Nice. Well, I still like the cookie idea. That's pretty much, because if you're burnt out and you got the munchies, now you get 5 cookies.
The cookies aren't the edible, right? You buy the cookies, but you get some weed. Is that what it is? Yeah.
That's great. So later on, when you're getting those munchies, you got 5 chocolate chip cookies to devour a little bit. That's a smart idea. That's a brilliant pot. I don't know, out of the 3 who would think of something like that. I think all 3, burner, stoner, or pothead, would come up with something like that. The stoner would come up with the idea. The pothead said it would elaborate on it, make it into a business, and then the burner would go out and do it. That's what I think how it would work. So, well, we're gonna smoke. Mrs. Weedman and I are gonna smoke, and while we smoke our kosher kush, it's a joint that we have it's one of our favorite strains that we do. It's Mrs. Weedman. She loves the kush. But while we're smoking, I want you to tell us about Sara and about your background, about who you are, your bio. What drew you to cannabis and the cannabis culture? And before we go into the story part, tell us about you.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in New Jersey, but I've been in DC since 2001. And I have always been making like nonfiction films, usually little shorts for clients. You know, everyone has a website and they need video for it. So I've been making videos for 20 years now. But also, so I'm a burner in the other sense of the word, as in I go to Burning Man. And so that's like a huge drug culture, right? So like between music festivals and Burning Man, I've been around drugs a lot. And it never made sense to me that weed was illegal at all. So this was my first independent film that I made. And I found Madison and Melanie not looking for necessarily this particular story. I kind of just met them, and we can get into that in a little bit. But I don't know. Cannabis has always been a part of my life. Either my brothers were smoking or my friends in college were smoking. All of my friends, there was always weed around. So if ever I wanted to get high, that was an easy option. It just wasn't what I'm not a functional stoner. I just get really giggly and fall asleep.
That's great. I love it.
Yesterday I ate an edible because my back has been acting up all weekend. So a friend we went to like lunch and she's like, oh, here, have an edible. And then I just spent the rest of the night watching Disney Plus. It was great.
That's the best. I watch Disney Plus a lot. Besides The Mandalorian, I'm into a lot of animal shows. Like I love anything when it comes to watching animal documentaries. And what I did when Disney Plus came out, I went back and found all the ones I watched when I was a kid from like the 70s and 80s that were made in like the 50s, like the first animal experience shows. It was before David Attenborough. This was like in the 50s when Disney was like the first to do documentaries, and I go back and watch those, and my kids make fun of me a lot, but like, oh, I'm like, they're great because they're storytelling, not just about the animals, the way they did it. So I get Disney Plus. That's an everyone when you're smoking to go watch some Disney Plus and watch some, like you can watch Snow White. You get Disney Plus is great.
Snow White.
I like Snow White. So a couple things. Where in Jersey, if you don't mind me asking, where in Jersey were you from? Yeah,
I grew up in Voorhees. It's in South Jersey, outside Philly. It's next to Cherry Hill. It's Route 4 or Exit 4 off the Turnpike.
Okay, yeah, I was born in Passaic, New Jersey. Grew up in Garfield, and then till I was about 3 or 4, and my parents took me back to where our family was at in the Bronx. So, but yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, Jersey for life. The place we were born. Also, talking about your brothers, did you steal a lot of cannabis from them when you were younger? Like go sneak in their drawers and stuff like that because they had it around?
No, so I smoked. No, what I would do though was in college, I would go home and get weed off of them and bring it back for my friends because apparently
you were everybody's friend.
Oh, Sarah's going home this weekend. We're gonna get weed.
Yeah, you were everybody's friend.
I was a huge stoner. I remember like the last weekend of college, this guy that I known for like years was like, "Oh yeah, you're a big stoner, right?" I'm like, no, why would you think that? Do I get off that impression? But I was a swimmer, so I was always in sweatpants. I was like, if what I'm wearing says swimming and diving team, then I can be in sweatpants all the time because you have no idea if I just came from the pool or not.
Ah, interesting. Mrs. Weedman was a swimmer too.
I was.
What did you swim?
I was actually a diver.
Diver?
Ah.
Okay. Mrs. Weedman was a swimmer.
Yeah, the redheaded stepchild of the swim team.
Well, I swam for the city of Chicago, so we didn't have diving boards. We had city pools. I think that's the only reason we didn't have a diving team. There was no deep end.
No deep end? Oh, shit. So we're so glad you're on. And like we talked about a few minutes ago about the documentary. Tell us about it. Tell us your story, the story of the Davis family and Madison Davis. We saw this documentary and it was heartfelt and it was teary-eyed and it was very, very strong, and why the cannabis community needs to go out there and fight more for the legalization of cannabis in all the states, at least for medical, because watching what this family went through, the money they were spending from getting it shipped over from the other side of the country, to be able to watch what this young girl went through, to be able to get something that could help her, and the family said it was helping her and they couldn't get it. So I want to know everything that you are willing to tell us and share about this, because I think it's something special, and I think our podcast family out there needs to hear this. And so let's take it away. This is you. Go ahead, Sarah.
I learned so much making this film. I had no idea how. I was like, oh, marijuana is legal, it's decriminalized, this is great, but I had no idea that that's like one teeny tiny little step in like a long journey that needs to happen for our country to get on the right page. So I started teaching film. I was teaching film at Old Dominion University down in Norfolk, Virginia. And a friend of a friend who I met down there had just started work. I don't know if he just, but was working for the local chapter of NORML. So NORML is the national organization for marijuana legislation and reform. And he was doing kind of like this Humans of New York series on Facebook, where he'd post a picture of someone and then kind of a little who used medical marijuana. Yeah. And like a little blurb about them. So he posted a few of these, and he posted one of Madison and Melanie Davis. And so I was like, it caught me. And I was like, at the time was working on my MFA, my Master's in Fine Arts in Film, and was looking for my thesis project. So I needed a film to make for my thesis, and saw their picture on Facebook and pinged them and was like, hey, Jesse, I didn't even ask about them specifically. I just said, hey, do you have any stories for me to tell? And he's like, yeah, you have to meet Melanie and Madison. So I went over to their house. I didn't even bring my camera. I just wanted to go meet them and had dinner with them and the family. So it's Melanie and Ben are the parents, and Madison and Aiden are the children. And they're just like the perfect, like, all-American family. You just like can't get more wholesome than this family. And I mean, like every family, they, you know, they're not perfect, right? But, you know, I have this like cute little house in the suburbs, 2 kids, a boy and a girl. You know, they're married. Ben's like a government contractor, and Melanie's an ER nurse, which was, I think, really, really important for this story because it gives her so much credibility as a medical professional. She's not, I feel like a lot of like, there's a bunch of shorts that like Vice did and some other entities did on like parents with kids with cancer using marijuana. Yep. And I feel like they were always these like hippie parents, like living in the desert, who are like, yeah, I'm gonna give
totally, yeah,
right.
The Colorado ones, especially, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and these were just like a normal family that you would meet in any cookie cutter American suburb. And I'm like, oh man, they're so great. And then Madison, man, she's a little ham. She just loves being the center of attention, which is great when you're making a film. The worst
That's what you wanted.
To be on camera, right? You can't make a film about someone who does not want to be on camera. It's challenging. So I was like, all right, let's do this. And my background is more, you know, you come in, you film with a family, or you film a subject for a couple weeks at most, and then you put together like a 5 to 10 minute film. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, I'm going to film with them for a little bit, and, you know, in 2 weeks, I'll cut something together and I'll be done. That was not the case. So I filmed with them for a little over a year and a half. Most of the footage you see was from the first year. And, you know, I saw them more. I was shooting with them 1 or 2 times a month, and I was seeing them more than I was seeing my own family. So, you know, they really are, and the difference is like, they only saw me 1 or 2 times a month, but I was going home and editing on my footage. So they were in my living room every single day for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're definitely family for me, for sure. I'm sure Melanie would say the same. I would hope so.
That's sweet.
Yeah, that's
sweet
awesome. That you got that connection. That's what I mean. Not just going in there and doing a documentary and going and just, okay, here, I'm done. I'm gonna post it. You built a solid relationship, and they became your family, and to vice versa.
Yeah. But I think that really comes through in your movie also, because you feel like you're in their natural life. And if they weren't comfortable with you and hadn't connected with you, it may not have translated that way. It would have just felt more like a movie, right? Yeah. And it just felt like we were part of their story. It was really neat. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, so go ahead.
Yeah. I did spend a lot of time, you know, without the camera rolling, because I think that's really important. Especially in filmmaking, there used to be this idea that as a filmmaker, you couldn't be involved in your story. But I'm a human being first, and they're people first, and they're allowing me into their house to tell their story. I'm not, you know, by nature of me being there, that changes things. So there's no point. And I knew that Madison and Melanie and everyone in this were going to see the film also. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing them justice and honoring their story. Awesome. Yeah. And from the very beginning, I was always like, if you don't let me know if, you know, you don't want me here one day, or if something's going, you know, when you're done, let me know. And they're, you know, I always made sure they knew that. And they're like, trust, we will let you know if that's
Let me ask you something. When you were doing the filming in the house and going to the hospital and the ride-alongs, how was that? Did it affect the family at all through any of that, or were they just comfortable with you being there, or was it awkward in the beginning and then it got smoother and smoother as it went along?
Yeah, for sure. One thing, I was always going into it with like, oh man, these people are letting me into their lives and letting me film them and letting me make a film about them. And it didn't dawn on me till halfway through the process that, oh, everyone wants to feel heard and everyone has a story to share. So this wasn't a one-way street. I was also allowing them to talk about things like none of them, I don't think were in therapy. So like at some point I realized I was kind of becoming a therapist, like letting people talk about things that are on their mind that necessarily they wouldn't be able to talk about. So it wasn't just a one-way street, which is once I realized that, I'm like, oh, right, I get to make this film that's going to live on forever about this time in their lives, and not how many people get to see that.
That's pretty awesome. And being able to allow you to come into their life and be able to do this film and be able to bond says a lot about probably both the family and yourself and the humbleness of it all. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, tell us about Madison though. Like from the documentary, like really watching her, she looked like a very sweet, kind, young girl.
I always just kept thinking like, I mean, anyone that's old or like our age and is going through cancer treatment suffers. And then you've got these young children who just seem to somehow keep conquering and going on. And like, what child really understands the impact of having a surgery? And these kids go on like having multiple surgeries, knowing the pain that comes with that. And they have to continue on with more surgeries because that's the only treatment that's working effectively.
Yeah. To explain the type of cancer she had, because I don't want to ruin the movie, but we didn't explain the kid.
Yeah. So Madison had what's known as ependymoma, and she had recurring ependymoma. So she was diagnosed when she was 4.5. And so it's brain tumors. And they found one brain tumor when they were on a family trip, and they immediately went to the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia and had it removed. And for ependymoma, the only treatment is surgical reduction. So you find it, you go in and you cut it out and you hope it doesn't come back. Once it comes back, there's no standard of care. There's no treatment. The only thing you can do is keep cutting it out and hoping it doesn't come back. She did like 4 rounds of chemotherapy. She had 4 lifetime doses of chemotherapy by the time she was 10. She had 10 brain surgeries brain and spine surgeries by the time she was 10. So they cut out the first one. It didn't come back for a couple of years. They thought they were in the clear and it was fine. And then it came back. They actually think that she probably had the cancer from the time she was born. One of the signs, a doctor once said, does she have hiccups? And they're like, oh yeah, man, she's had hiccups since she was in the womb. Like she got hiccups almost every day. And they're like, she's probably had this since before she was born then.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's a really rare form of brain cancer. Only 200 children and adults are diagnosed every year in the United States with ependymoma. So, we don't have, there's no treatment. So like, you just throw everything you can at it. She was in clinical trials. She did a lot. It was tough. Oh, so how she is a girl, man, like you wouldn't have known she was a sick little girl. She was not walking around like you always see all these, bald little kid pictures and gowns, or they always look sick. And I feel like that's always how we try to portray cancer, because that's what pulls on people's heartstrings, that visual. And I really wanted to show a film that this wasn't about a little kid dying of cancer. It's really about a family doing everything they can to beat this awful thing that like came into their house. Right. So, yeah.
When were you filming? I was curious about this. Did you introduce the family to cannabis, or was they already involved doing it with cannabis, and then you filmed it while she was the struggles of trying to get Madison's medicine?
Yeah. So kind of, I went into this very optimistically. Me and Madison were always kind of on the same page. We're like, this cannabis is going to cure the cancer. Which obviously was not the case, but that was always the hope that, okay, this is the last thing we haven't tried yet. And there have been some studies, some anecdotal stories always, right? There's always these stories of the little girl who used cannabis and then her tumors went away and she was fine. So they had just started using full extract cannabis oil when I started filming with them. So they had been on like THC, THCA, CBD for about a year before I met them. Okay. And then they just added in. So Rick Simpson oil is what it's commonly referred to.
Yep.
Pico. They had just started using that. So the first time I filmed with them at the hospital was their first MRI. She got an MRI every 3 months. So the first MRI after she started using the full extract cannabis oil is when I filmed them, was one of the first shoots I had with them.
And I saw that when using cannabis, they did shrink, but they didn't go away. Watching the documentary,
shrank, and then they came back and got bigger.
Gotcha. Was that due because she couldn't get her medicine, cannabis, or was that just it was just the type of cancer she had that didn't?
I think, yeah, it was just the cancer that she had.
Right.
Melanie does say to this day she regrets not starting her on the cannabis sooner. So and it's amazing. So she only ever had 3 seizures ever, and she had multiple brain tumors.
Wow.
So after she had her first grand mal seizure is when the doctors were like, all right, we'll say it's okay for you to get on the cannabis. So they had been asking about it because Melanie does the research, right? In the film, she's like, her doctors have hundreds of patients. I have one. So she can do all the clinical research and look and see what's available. So she had wanted her to start on cannabis sooner, but they're in the state of Virginia, man. It's illegal. Doctors are not necessarily a fan of herbal medicine. You know, they all go to med school. They're taught you use prescriptions, you use drugs that are FDA approved. It has to be clinical trials. You know, you have to research things. You have to prove that it works. And unfortunately, the way that our drug laws exist in this country, we don't have a good way to do that with cannabis. So she went on so United Patients Group, if any parents are out there listening or patients are out there listening, United Patients Group, you can Google them, is an organization in California that you can do free consultations, and they have doctors who kind of are medical professionals. Some of the big obstacles in this country are your doctor doesn't even know how to prescribe marijuana, especially if they're in a state where it's illegal. So she was able to get some medical professional advice from this organization in California. She sent them all their medical records, talked everything over with them. After they looked at everything, they came back a few days later and were like, all right, so based on the information we have, we think that this is what she should take. And she should take these doses of these products. And Melanie's like, great. Now what? I can't go down to the CVS and buy these drugs. Like, what do I do now? And she's like, all right, I'm going to send out an email. It's going to look a little sketchy. Just go with it. And I'm going to introduce you to a woman who can help you get these products. And she was on such high doses. Like, she was on upwards of 300 milligrams a night of THC,
Wow.
CBD, and THCA, and the FICO. And you would never know.
That's 300 milligrams of Rick Simpson oil is not a light dose.
Well, at that point,
that's a heavy dose right there for like somebody that I've heard cancer patients having to use to help them. That somebody like myself taking 300 milligrams of Rick Simpson, I'd be crying to my mom.
Well,
so that's not a light dose.
If she was taking that high of a dose, was it more for pain management at that point?
Absolutely. So when you have tumors on your brain and your spine, they're really painful. So they didn't start her off at that, obviously, right? They started off at like 100 milligrams and then worked their way up. And you would not looking at her that she was on these drugs. As you guys know, like I know when I'm in pain, I normally 5 milligrams and I'm out. But when my back's super acting up, I can smoke and smoke and smoke and nothing helps and I don't even feel like I'm high. All I feel like is that I'm not focusing on the pain anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So she was on oxycodone, methadone, like super on opiates. Zero copay, no problem. Here's a prescription for 100 opiates to take to manage your pain. And they just didn't work. And the cannabis worked. And it doesn't have the same side effects. You're not going to overdose on cannabis.
Was she still taking the opioids when she was taking the cannabis? They took her. See, that's
amazing right there. I mean, that's reason enough, right?
Yeah.
Forget about it right there. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, how old was she when she was taking those narcotics?
Like 5, 6, 7.
And she was taking a lot at that age, right?
I don't actually know what her doses for the opiates were because.
Okay, but she was taking. I should say she was taking many different varieties of narcotics.
Yes, and so they were prescribing a lot of different pain meds to try to manage her pain. And it wasn't, so when she had her first seizure, that's when the doctors were like, okay, we will turn the other way if you want to add cannabis into her drug regime. Because she's on a laundry list she was on thalidomide. It's one of the drugs that's not even like, it causes babies to be born without arms and legs, right? Like they were throwing everything at this poor little girl's body to try to kill these tumors.
Wow.
Now, let me ask you a question. What did the doctors, or maybe you don't know, what did the doctors say when they took her off when she didn't need the narcotics anymore and all she was doing was taking the cannabis, the CBD, the THCA, the THC, all the cannabinoids that were helping her? Did they finally like believe a little bit that this cannabis was actually something they should like study and really learn more about for patients? Or they just like, it just worked for her, who knows, it's gonna work for anybody else?
So I feel like her Virginia doctors, where it was still illegal, were still very much, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but whenever she had to go into the hospital in Virginia, she wasn't allowed to bring those products and have them administered to her in the hospital. However, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, where they have more, where medical marijuana is legal, there the nurses were like, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll even give them to her if you want me to. So it definitely varied in state. Like the culture varies so much just by changing the laws, because so many people hear, oh, this is illegal. The government says it's illegal, so therefore it's wrong. And the way the public opinion changes just by laws is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot on this show about federally legalization versus state legalization and what will happen once it goes federally legal. But since I have this on my mind talking about the government, what, in your opinion, can the FDA, federal, state governments do to make cannabis more accessible to patients like Madison? And what can they do to actually educate more? In your opinion, what do you think?
I mean, the FDA has to take it off. It has to be taken off the Schedule I drug list. It has to be. There's so many hurdles, right? Once, if you're in a state like Virginia, you can't get it prescribed, so you don't know how much you need. Then once you do get a prescription, or you get told, okay, this is what you need, you have no place to buy it. You can't walk down to the CVS and buy it the same way you buy opiates. And then once you can find a place to buy it, or a place, and no one in states like Washington State, where it's legal recreationally, it's very hard to even find a grower who will make these high doses, because most people don't need 300 milligrams of THC a night. They need 10 to 20. So there's no incentive for a grower to make these high dosage. So we have to legally make it. Sorry, let me start over. We have to federally make it legal so that insurance companies will cover it. Until the federal government legalizes it, insurance companies will not cover it. Once insurance covers it, then it becomes profitable. And then people can also afford it. They were spending $100 a day just on her cannabis, and that was cheap. I went to a dispensary in DC to try to buy a dose of her Ringsipsin oil. One daily dose of what she was on cost $160, and you were only able to buy one dose at a time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And here's a medicine, really. It's not even a drug, right? It's a medicine, and it's helping her.
Yeah.
And look who can afford it.
Yeah. And I mean, I know they're in Virginia, and it's probably the laws are tight where they couldn't even find somebody who was growing it there, because he works for the government, so he didn't want to take a chance looking for somebody locally that would get him in trouble. Did it put him in jeopardy though a little bit for Mrs. Davis, getting it across state lines? How did they feel about that? I mean, probably didn't care because it was his daughter, but there was probably some underlying thing going, hey, I could get in trouble for this.
Mm-hmm.
By that point, no, they didn't care. They're like, we're doing whatever we can for our family, And Melanie was very proactive about speaking. Like, she spoke at normal events. And the way our government kind of works is that people who are more vocal or in the public eye actually tend to get in less trouble for things like this. You're going to bust the people who don't speak English and are here illegally. They're low-hanging fruit, right? Those are a lot easier to bust than the white mom who has a little girl with cancer who's been on the front page of the paper. So it kind of gave them a little bit of protection, but really they were kind of like, we don't care. We're going to do whatever we want to do. We're going to do whatever we can do at this point to make our little girl's life more comfortable. And they even talk about growing But one of my friends who grows was like, she's on such high dosage, you're not going to be able to, you need a big operation to make the amount that she was on.
Yeah, as much as she was taking a day. I mean, even learning about Rick Simpson, the creator of Rick Simpson Oil, and reading how much that he had to do was nowhere near the amount that this young girl was taking. I mean, he only had skin cancer. I mean, she had full brain tumors that was, causing her. I mean, that would have been a lot. Yeah, I get it. Man, it's just sad.
Sarah, when you set out to make this movie, were you making the movie initially about a little girl who was fighting a really awful fight and just getting through cancer, or were you setting out to learn about how she incorporated cannabis into her well-being and her treatment?
So cannabis was definitely the sticking point. Really, I was like, look, the cannabis is going to cure her cancer and it's going to be great. I kept telling my best friend at the time, who also is a filmmaker, I was like, I'm not making a film about a little girl dying of cancer. I'm not doing it. And she's like, I think that might be what you're doing. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, because I can't make that film. That's an awful thing to do. No one wants to make a film about someone dying. That's terrible. And then I was watching, have you guys seen Free Solo?
No,
I've not.
Oh, so it's about this guy who climbs this crazy cliff face in Yosemite with no harness, like no ropes. And like he's friends with all the crew, right? And they're all making this film about their friend. You get to know someone as you're making it. And I'm watching this film by myself, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they're making a film about their friend who could die at any moment. And then I'm like, oh, wait.
Wait, you're doing the same thing.
Is there, like, we follow a lot of, on social media, Mrs. Weeman and I, medical marijuana, cannabis sites and groups. I'm on a lot of cannabis grower groups. Is there any resources on social media that you would recommend for a family like the Davis family that's going through the same issues, that can get on and learn more about cannabis and get off the narcotics and get off of all the crap that might be hurting their child or even themselves, and get on this website that they can learn more?
Mm-hmm. So Canna Kids used to have a big Facebook page, and they don't anymore. I'm not sure what happened to that group. There's a ton for like cancer moms, like cancer and cannabis. Honestly, I'm not like super connected into that community, but I would say that United Patients Group is the website that helped them out, that has a lot of resources on it. So that would be a good place to start.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's something that they use. So, I mean, at least it's some good resources. And this is probably a stupid question, but I don't ask always the greatest questions. So, did the parents use cannabis at all while this was going on to help them relax and help them take the stress? Because, I mean, I've seen some documentaries and some stories about watching, some of the parents that had to deal with their kids with seizures, and they don't look good after a long time. She looked actually really good. I mean, she looked fresh every day, and maybe because she was on film, I don't know, but I've seen documentaries where the parents looked really rough. But did she use cannabis to help her with everything that was going on? Because I would have used a lot of it.
I mean, it's tough when you're a parent though too, because you don't want to be high if something happens, to your child. So they definitely smoke a lot more now.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah. And there was one at the pool party. There's like a pool party scene. Everyone was, all the parents were smoking.
I remember that scene.
Off camera. That was
I remember the pool party scene. I didn't remember seeing them smoke, but I remember the pool party scene. No, it was such a great film. Give us anything else you want to tell us about the film. I mean, was it struggling for you filming it? I mean, you were spending a lot of time there. How did the whole process for you personally, the filming of it all, the editing of it all, how did that go for you? I mean, it was a phenomenal job, not a flaw in it, but I don't know any better. I just watch them. I don't make them.
Yeah. This was the longest piece I've ever made. So it was definitely a learning process. So I'm so thankful that they got to come along with me for this journey. I was editing as I went along. So I would shoot and then I'd come home. So I'm an editor. That's my day job, is I edit. So that's where I think films really come to life. And so I would shoot and then come home and edit. So I was constantly working on this all the time. And it kept going back and forth from between being like a feature film and a short. 30 minutes is like this really weird length. It's great for the Academy Awards. So we were nominated for a Student Academy Award this year, which was, so we were one of the top 7 short student films, documentaries in the country, according to the Academy of Arts and Sciences. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. That's huge.
So everyone definitely check out the film. But I definitely realized that when Madison was doing great, I was like, this is fun. I love making this film. This is awesome. But then right before she was about to, every time she was going into surgery or getting out of surgery, you know, the family was all, you know, up on edge because she's going into surgery. But I didn't realize that that's the moments when I was like, I can't make this film anymore. This is too hard. I'm done. I've shot enough. It's good. And luckily I had advisors who kept pushing me. They're like, you're not done making this film. You need to keep filming. And I'm glad they did. And a lot of people were like, not a lot of people, but I did hear like, you know, you're not done until she passes away, right? And I was always pushing back on that because I was very adamant that I was not making a film about death. And I think that comes across in the film, that this is not a film about death. This is very much a film about living.
Yes.
That's what I got.
Yeah, that's what I got about it too. And that weekend we actually watched your documentary first, and then the next day we watched on sorry, Disney Plus, I'm giving you a plug here, but was that movie
Soul.
with Soul.
Oh,
Yeah.
So cute.
You watched it too?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was back-to-back weekends, back-to-back days. So Friday, Saturday, your film about Madison Davis and Little But Fierce, and then Soul, and they were both about life, and they were both about how people wanted to live, and I was just like such an emotional weekend.
Yeah. I'm like, how did we get in this?
Yeah.
Did you then watch Inside Out next? Because that would just been a triple threat.
Oh, that would have been a triple threat. Sunday would have been good. So yes, it was a very emotional weekend that we talked about it on when we recorded the podcast on that Sunday, and we said everyone out there that listens, you need to watch both of them. And it was to me, it moved me a lot and makes me want to try to live my life every day to the fullest, especially watching Madison, who wanted to live a life, you know, and it was taken away from her suddenly by a illness. But she looked like she could have been something special. She could have been the cure for cancer. You don't know what that child could have become.
Well, she was so spirited and positive through all, like when I mentioned about all the surgeries, like she knowingly went into these surgeries. She knew how much pain they were going to cause her, but she was obviously optimistic enough and had support of really loving family that she felt like it was worth, like, I need to do this.
There was a scene, and I forget, don't worry about spoilers. You need to watch it regardless. So, but there was a scene when she had gotten out of surgery that was like, that was devastating, like heart-throbbing to me as being a father of 2 children, and watched that scene. But she was acting like nothing. Like she was still playing.
I got this.
She's like, I'm going to beat that. Basically, I got this shit. I'm going to beat it. You know, kind of thing. She was positive, uplifting, and that moved me even more for her as her life, as short as it was, still be able to move people out there if they watch the film, because being a parent and seeing that can actually draw people to what that family went through regardless, and hopefully they can live a better life with their kids, you know, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen in the near future.
And that's the one thing about our drug laws in this country, is that how can you tell a parent that they are not allowed to do everything in their power to save their child's life? You can't tell a parent that. And yet we're making them out to be criminals because we've decided that this plant that grows in the ground is illegal.
I'm growing it right now in my back of my basement. What are you talking about? I just replanted my 2 plants into a bigger pot today, so it was quite fascinating.
They're so happy plants now.
I love
it. I'm convinced the more that I learn and embrace cannabis and the cannabis culture, the stigmas will die off when, like you're saying, Sarah, like when the laws change, because there's just like a mental block on people. Like if something's illegal, it's bad. And it doesn't matter how much data and information is out there. If the laws still say in places that it's bad, people still think it's bad. And we even see now, like where Illinois is legal, it's a mind shift and it's slow. So there's people who have embraced it. There's people that are like, oh, maybe I'll give it a try. And then there's still people that are like, oh, it's a drug. It's bad, right? I'm going to go drink a bottle of wine. Like, hello.
Or smoke a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Right. And 100%.
So it's just like, it's a shift. It's
funny now, though, we had a block party over the summer, and it was kind of funny that how people are a little more open about talking about it than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even a year ago. It's like, you? Really? You?
Wait, you smoke?
Come on.
No shit.
It's one of those things now where it's like, you, me? In the yeah kind of thing, you know. I love it, and why we do this podcast, we say it all times to break the stigma and also to help we're learning to help others learn. And by you doing a documentary like that, and more people out there, do you think this could turn into a series for you, like where you can find other families that would want to be able to because it might be another 2 more years before this gets passed federally? Would you do another film like this and maybe make it into a docu-series, like maybe a 4 or 5 series, just as educational now, not only just for yourself to learn and grow, but also for the families to get to maybe it hits the government, media gets it. We watched the show Crack on Netflix, and it hit me a lot because I grew up in New York, and it was in the 80s, and there was a lot of crack, and that's where it exploded. And so watching the government and how they portrayed that in the whole thing about cocaine and crack, and marijuana was mentioned a bunch of times on there too, being a part of that federal one scheduled drug. And actually cocaine's 2.
I know cocaine's 2.
Yeah, cocaine is 2.
Because
marijuana.
Because white people do cocaine, and black people and hippies smoke pot, so we need to put them in jail.
Right.
They're all bad.
Thanks, Nixon. Salute, Nixon.
I mean, I think chief of staff or something has even admitted that that's where a lot of the harsh marijuana laws came from. It's like, we need a reason to lock people up.
1935, Harry Esslinger was the start of it, and then Nixon was the worst part of it, and then Reagan with the drug war, and then going into the future of it with Bill Clinton arresting, 400,000 black men for dealing. I mean, it's just been a continuous just crash and burn kind of thing. Instead of helping people, we hurt people instead. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, modern day slavery, man. Yeah. Got it somehow, right? According to the government.
That's it. So, but my thing is with cannabis, and would you see this being a docuseries? Would other families now come to you?
If Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus wants to pay me to do a series, that would be fantastic. But now, yeah.
I mean, you're award winning. Everything I read on your bio.
Wait, I'm looking at the Little But Fierce website right now, and you have 6 awards. So you were the winner of the Gold Award for the Spotlight Documentary Film Awards in 2020, a finalist in the Independent Short Awards in LA in June, the New York International Film Awards finalist in 2020, the Best Student Short Documentary with Breck Film.
Yeah, the Breckenridge Film Festival.
Okay. Semi-finalist with Flicker's Rhode Island International Film Festival. And the big one, the Student Academy Awards finals in 2020. That's huge.
We're going to see you on a stage with an Oscar.
We talked to her.
Independent filmmaking is hard, man. There's a lot of people out there making films, and sadly, they don't necessarily all see the light of day. So especially with this year, so normally the way independent filmmaking works, or any filmmaking works, is if you're, it's not being released in the theaters, you apply to film festivals, which all costs money. I probably spent thousands of dollars just applying to film festivals. You get a ton of rejections. You get a couple that might say, hey, yeah, we'll program you. And then you use that experience to go and like schmooze and meet people like at the film festival. But this year, there's no film festivals. So that was part of the reason that I said, you know what, I'm going to stop even applying. I applied for some big ones, right? Like if you get into Tribeca or Sundance, funny thing with Tribeca is that they went online, and then if you had previously screened it online, you weren't ineligible. So because I screened with the Breckenridge Film Festival, they're like, oh, never mind. Yeah, which was a bummer. I was like, but no one even watched it at that film festival. So that's why I decided to just throw up on Amazon, because I thought it was really important to just get the film out into the world. And hopefully more like people listening to your podcast will go and see it. And once things like calm down and we can go to movie theaters again, maybe it'll have a run in the film festival circuit. Maybe So I've been exploring all avenues. So if any listener out there has any ideas for distribution, I am all ears. Please email me. You can find my contact information at littlebutfiercefilm.com.
Nice. And you know, I was thinking about, like I said, we just talked about, I think it'd be a cool for you and also for other families out there to be able, or even it doesn't even have to be a child, it could be an adult that went through cancer, just to get more knowledge and education. And then hopefully, you know, the media will pick it up and like that, you know, and all of a sudden say, hey, they are doing some with media, but not enough to because once it hits mainstream media and they start talking about it more and more, the government does look at it. I don't care what anybody says, because the media will just keep on blowing it and blowing it and blowing it up. So hopefully this works out for you and you get some more exposure. Maybe a short documentary, you know, of more of these will come out for you. I hope it does, because I think it's a great thing you did for the family and for the cannabis community and cannabis culture, and for just educational purpose of what doctors aren't teaching about. As you said, that you know, they had to they turned the blind eye kind of thing when it came to them finding out that they were using cannabis over opioids, or hey, stop taking the opioids. But I think it's great what you did. Why don't you do me a favor and plug your film, plug where they can watch it at, your Insta, if you got any social media you want to plug, and yeah, let us know where people can find you.
Yeah, so the film, you can watch it on Amazon. I think it's like $2. It might be $3. It's worth it. So Amazon, if you Google Little But Fierce Film, it should show up. We are also on Facebook, so facebook.com/Little But Fierce Film. You can find us online at littlebutfiercefilm.com. We do have an Instagram. Everything's Little But Fierce Film. So we have Instagram. I had an intern set up a Twitter account, but I don't do anything. I'm not on the Twitter. So IG, Facebook, find us online. If you want to share your story, please post on our Facebook page. We would love to hear. Part of this film was there's so many families going through this, and it's a very lonely experience, and you feel like you're the only ones going through it. So I really wanted families who are going through similar experiences to just feel a little bit less alone. And I think that's really important. Like, for all you out there, everyone out there going through this, my heart goes out to you. And hopefully you can watch this and feel a little bit more connected to your community through the film.
Can you give us something maybe Madison said that would inspire? Maybe there was like a line or something that she said all the time that made you laugh or made the family laugh. Give us one thing of inspiration that came from her that can maybe enlighten all of us in the cannabis community, all of us burners, stoners, and potheads out there, to make us go out there every day and try to live our life to the fullest.
Oh man, yeah, she had a great quote. She was like, "It's good and it's bad, but I love my life, except when I'm not in the hospital."
Well, rest in peace, Madison Davis. We will pray for you and show you as much love and attention as we can. But we honor you by having Sara on this show, and we want to say thank you for being on. Anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to our listeners out there?
No, man, I think we covered it. Thanks for having me. It was nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you. Hopefully, if we're ever in Washington, D.C. or you're ever in Illinois, give us a shout out. We'd love to smoke with you and share some of our great original homegrown weed with you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm down.
Well, hey, fam out there, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there, we really appreciate you listening to us. We just did our best month ever. Over 3,100 downloads on Buzzsprout. That's not including all the other platforms. So we want to say thank you all from around the world for listening. Once again, we're growing because you're sharing. And as Mrs. Weedman always says, sharing is caring. You got anything else, Mrs. Weedman?
Yeah, we've had a lot of requests for more shows that we don't do enough.
Yeah.
We're going to work on that. We're going to try to step it up to one a week. Yeah. And so we appreciate that feedback, because sometimes we wonder, is anyone listening, right? Are people really listening to us?
Yeah.
And then when we hear that people want more, it's, wow, okay.
Humbles us.
Yeah. And Sara, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great.
Yeah, thanks. This was fun.
Yeah.
Don't forget to check us out on all the podcast platforms. We're on all of them. Another one just launched as Vulnerable or something. I don't know. I can't pronounce them. Anyway, we're on another platform. Check us out on Instagram at Weedman420 Chronicles on Instagram. And then check us out on our Twitter at Weedman420Pod. Shoot us an email. We got this guy said we want more. Chris, I think his name was. We sent him some stickers. So as a thank you, and we'll get more out to you, Chris. And check us out at Weedman420 Chronicles at gmail.com. We love you all. as Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.